So Stuckey, if you will give us your opening statement, please.
Hello, everybody. I'm Lynn Stuckey, State Representative for House District 64. It's been a privilege and honor to be your representative now for 7 years. This is the 8th year. My wife and I made Denton County in North Texas our home in 1983, and I've been blessed to own a small business, veterinary business, for almost 41 years, and May will be 41 years. We are members of Denton Bible Church, and we've been going there since 1987. And I think it's extremely important that, as a representative, that we are involved in our community, in the North Texas community and in House District 64. And I have been involved in many, many different things, including the president of the Denton County Veterinary Medical Association, on the board of the Chamber of Commerce, a 15-year school board member, and I can go on and on. Started Denton Young Life with 5 other couples, and as the chairman of the board of the Kennecook Institute, which is a biblically-based master's program in theology or an MBA. The thing that I want to tell you too about everybody that's talking, the one thing that we have going on in our society today is what I am going to call the swirling of the toilet. It's getting progressively worse. We're losing the family unit. We're losing so many other things. So it becomes more and more difficult to govern more and more of this stuff. We have had a great session since I've been there. We've had the last 2 sessions are historically the most conservative sessions ever on record in this state, passing many things about the things that we talked about priority-wise. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit more when we have the opportunity. But Lynn Stuckey, I appreciate your vote, and God bless you all that are here.
Hey y'all, my name's Andy Hopper. I'm running to be your rep at Texas House District 64. I actually ran for the seat 2 years ago, and it was 88 votes on election night. I'm joined here with my beautiful wife, Amanda. We've been married for 26 years. We raised all 3 of our boys here in the district. Last 25 years, my 3 boys were actually born at Denton Regional, just down the road. We went to church and Cross Timbers here in Denton County. For the last 13 years, we've lived in Wise. I'm a warrant officer in the Texas State Guard. My oldest son, Grant, is a sergeant in this guard, and we're blessed to be able to serve together in the same unit. Y'all, how many of you know what the Overton window is? The Overton window is this idea that there is this fixed width thing that is basically defines what's normal in society. If you're outside of that window, they consider you crazy. Here's the deal. If you believe that January 6th was at worst maybe like a mostly peaceful protest, and at probably a government conspiracy, if you believe that the 2020 election was probably stolen, if you believe that CCP shouldn't own land in Texas, you're probably outside that window. You're considered an extremist. And the same thing is going on in the Texas House. Under the Dade Phelan's watch, we basically passed bills that would put 2 Muslim holidays on the state calendar, that we renamed Columbus Day as Indigenous Peoples Day. We put a radical Democrats in the charge of committees. We actually have a Democrat that identifies as non-binary in charge of committees. We put the largest spending increase in Texas history. All of these things have been voted for by this representative, and we need new governance. And I'm telling you what, as your representative, I will stand outside the window. I will join other conservatives to drag, pull, and manhandle that window back to the right. I will represent your conservative values, and I will fight for our district, and I will fight for you. Thank you very much.
Good evening, I'm Elaine Hayes, and I'm running for the Texas House from District 64. First and foremost, I am a person of faith, and I would not be in this race unless I felt specifically called by God. It is the thing that leads my life in every area. I was fortunate, and I'm very grateful to have grown up in Wise County. I went to Bridgeport High School, graduated there as a Bridgeport sissy. I was Female Athlete of the Year, both my junior and senior year, before woke ideology came along and maybe would not have been able to identify what was the male or female athlete of that year, and would have taken away opportunities that I had to go on and play basketball at TCU. My husband Tracy and I have been married for 38 years. I married an Amarillo boy, so we have been in the Texas Panhandle raising our 4 children. We now have 5 grandchildren. All of them live in Texas, and I am concerned about the future Texas that is in front of them. I'm concerned about the legacy that I would be leaving behind for my children and grandchildren. I have met so many people in the last couple of years that have moved to Texas from other states, so excited based on our reputation and an expectation of freedom and leadership. And they get here and go, what the heck happened to Texas? You have vaccine mandates. You have children determining their gender. You have mask mandates. You have people coming across your border. We have got to have bold leadership coming out of our state house, but it also needs to be effective. And I'm a force multiplier to guarantee you not just my vote as a conservative, but to be able to persuade others to join us. Because even when we're in the minority, even when we're in the majority, we are not leading that way, and we have to make a change.
Okay, Mr. Crawford, first question will go to you. Okay, ready?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. We are a sovereign nation, yet we have a border where millions of illegal aliens come across daily. Explain your position on exactly what action you think Texas should take.
I think no action should be off the table for the state of Texas. We never agreed to a union where the courts and the federal government basically tell us what we can do with our border. Texas has secured its border for most of its history, but for most of its history, federal government has failed. I would augment the size of the Texas military forces. Most of the troops on the ground are actually M-Day troops. They basically have jobs back in the city. We need to have permanent border force. HB 20 was actually almost passed by the Texas legislature the first session, and we should have passed that bill. Would have created a permanent border force that would have operated and had operational control over the entire Texas border. That's what our end game needs to be. We need to have rules of engagement that allows everyone that's participating on that mission to be able to repel illegals and send them back. We need to have nothing should be off the table. Texas, in the past, has actually chased vigilantes back into Mexico. And I guarantee you, if the Texas military forces was on the other side of the river, this invasion would stop. So that should definitely never been taken off the table. So we should secure our border, and Texas should do whatever it takes. Thank you.
The border is the #1 issue that I hear when I am out around the district visiting with our citizens. And it is because on 3 levels, we are facing a crisis. When you do not secure your border, there is no national sovereignty. If you are not controlling who comes in and out of your country, if you do not know who they are, then you do not have a country. As Texans, we are picking up a greater economic burden than some of the other states. And they have been fine for us to do that until they started realizing some of the costs that we were having. On a 3rd level, the humanitarian, inhumane issues that are happening at our border are unconscionable, and too much of the dollars that we as Texans have been directing to our border are about processing people into our country, not deterrence. There are a number of things that we can and should be doing. For at least 4 years, we have been standing back, expecting the federal government to step in, and we cannot wait for that any longer.
The Biden administration has been a total failure, and we as a state have had to take over their job. When I first got elected in 2017, we were only spending about $200 to $300 million a year on the border. We're now, since that time, we've spent over $13.4 billion. We have to have boots on the ground, barriers, and technology. And we are starting to do that, but we need some help from the federal government. In the meantime, we're going to do everything we can at the state level, including building 100 miles of wall that's starting here in the next month. We're going to get up to 10 miles per week when we get that, to get that done. The other thing is the policies that the Biden administration has. Trump had a Remain in Mexico policy, and he also believed that the federal government knew it was illegal to pass across the border into our state. But they don't enforce it with the Biden administration. We have just passed another law to make it illegal to cross in here and into Texas, and we can send them back to the country of origin. So we're doing a number of things, but we've got to have help from the federal government. So I like some of the answers I'm hearing from the congressional candidates. And by the way, Texas will always be part of the United States of America and not separate.
Question number 2, Ms. Hayes, will go to you. Okay. So citizens like you and like members of the audience work hard to get Republicans elected. Will you oppose the appointment of Democratic members as committee chairs?
Texas is the only state in the country where the Republican majority appoints Democrats to chair committee chairs. There is no state that has Democrats that are in the majority that appoint Republicans as chairs. It is not an expectation for us as voters because we are not asking for them to share the gavel. We have for over 20 years given the Republican Party the majority in our House. And the reason that so much of our legislation does not get passed out of the House is because some of the most radical Democrats have been appointed to key committee chairs. It is time to change that. And the voters from this district overwhelmingly voted. The number one responsibility of a representative is to vote your district. And our incumbent did not represent us the last couple of sessions, and it is something that has to be changed, and we are not looking for a uniparty representation in Austin. We selected the Republican platform, and we want people to represent us.
I have voted my district and I have supported the Republican platform 100%, but you have to play the cards that you are dealt. And I'm 100% behind going ahead and getting rid of Democrat chairs, but that needs to be done in the Republican caucus, just like the speaker being elected in the Republican caucus behind closed doors, and then we go out and vote on it. There are since 1847, there's always been some minority chairs. And that would be changing the rules, and that's just fine. But we're going to need to do it as a group of Republicans, not go out on the floor and do it without first talking about it behind closed doors in the Republican caucus. And we can do that. I have been the vice chair. I've been on appropriations for 3 sessions, and I've been the vice chair of 3 different committees. The last one was county affairs, but there's me and 6 Republicans on there, and just the chair and 2 Democrats. So in my county affairs committee, nobody gets to do anything without the vice chair being a part of it. And so they don't get anything passed without it. So there are ways to control it, but I'm 100% behind it as long as the Republican caucus agrees to do it and change the rules.
Do we get to talk an extra 30 seconds now?
1947.
So my opponent actually told our district that, in fact, we could not vote to eliminate Democrat chairs. That's not something we can even vote for. And he also told our district that, in fact, that he opposed putting Democrats in charge of committees as long as they were the bad ones, that they were the ones that fled to Washington. Well, the county chair, or the chair of the committee that he was talking about, county affairs, is Victoria Neve, and she fled to Washington. So we have Dade Phelan, who is actually the worst Republican in the Republican caucus. And he goes to Democrats and he says, hey, I'm the worst one here. Would you guys support me, please? Would you please support me? Well, what are you going to give me? Well, I'm going to give you Democrat chairs. I'm going to give you chairs of committees. And then that way you have power, but that I've consolidated power, but not with my own party. I've consolidated with the Democrats. And that's why our Republican agenda doesn't get passed. That's why this cabal of Republicans joined with 61 Democrats to impeach the most conservative attorney general in the state of Texas. They have a power structure that they've created where basically our priorities are not being passed, and that they know that, and they are funding all of these Republicans with hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars. Dade Phelan is the largest bundler of money in the state of Texas. We need to stop.
Okay. Question number 3. We'll case in the Senate, do you now feel that the vote to impeach him by the House was proper?
But the two things on impeachment of Ken Paxton, number one, if in appropriations, we were asked in February whether we are going to give out $3.3 million to the Attorney General to pay off a whistleblower lawsuit. That's your money out of your pockets. And we asked that the Attorney General and his lieutenants to come and tell us why we should do that rather than him fight it. We asked 4 times, never got an answer, and he never came to us. So there was an investigation done, and there was sufficient evidence to believe, and there was enough smoke to believe that it needs to be moved to a trial. All the House was to do was to ask, is there enough to believe that there should be a trial? So we, not me and 61 Democrats, but all of us except 20 Republicans voted to impeach Ken Paxton because there was evidence there that we need to look at. And by the way, it's not over yet, so hang time.
It is over, Dr. Stuckey. Here's the deal. Recently on a podcast in Wise County, he actually told people, well, you know, I didn't actually vote to impeach. I'm not even allowed to do that. When he says that he passed it over to the Senate, he's making you the case that the Senate is the one that impeaches. No, it's a constitutional duty. It's part of the Texas Constitution. The only people who can impeach are the House of Representatives. And they voted to impeach on evidence that was completely insufficient. If you watch the trial, the main charge was obstruction of justice. And their claim was, well, if you investigate the federal government or investigate a federal investigation, if the Attorney General does that, that is obstruction of justice. And basically what we had is a bunch of federal bootlickers that basically said only the feds can investigate the feds. And so we see what's actually going on here. It's exactly what they're doing to Donald Trump. That's why Ken Paxton is completely backed by Donald Trump, is because Ken Paxton is fighting the federal government, fighting for our state, fighting for our rights. And that's why they're going after him. And that's why the Democrats were the only ones that talked about impeachment for the entire year after January 7th, 2020. The only people that brought up impeachment was the Democrats.
Same question.
The last time the state of Texas impeached a statewide office holder, it took 6 months in the House of investigations. Both sides, the accusation and the defendant, was allowed time before the House to testify. All testimony had to be under oath. And they took 6 months of deliberation before taking that vote and then forwarding that decision on to the Senate. In this situation, they were given 48 hours. None of the testimony was under oath, and most of it was hearsay. It was an embarrassment to our state. The process, you know, the issues, a lot of people did have concerns. And if they wanted to have that investigated, then you do it properly. But it was a political response and an embarrassment to our state, should never have occurred, and I absolutely would not have voted for that.
Mr. Humphrey, you will give your closing statement first, please.
You know, knocking doors this time, what we found over and over again is folks are basically having to be talked off the ledge. They believe that there's not a political solution left. They believe that we are facing down a threat to our democracy that we've not, or a republic that we haven't seen for 100 years. And that's where we're at. And so I really believe that there is a political solution. That's why I'm running. I want to desperately fight for my kids and their liberty. But here is the deal. The deal is that our founders set up a government where our state legislatures are the most powerful branch, and they are supposed to stand up for our rights. Be the arm and the voice of our liberty is what Federalist 26 said. But we're not going to get there by being nice. We're not going to rescue our country by being nice. We're not going to rescue the Texas House by abandoning our principles. We have to stand firmly and be unbending. And here's the deal. My state rep here does not represent us. I wish I didn't have to run for this office, but unfortunately we don't have conservative representation. We have people that are basically telling their constituents that Ken Paxton's a criminal and that in fact that they're being gaslit. I will fight for your rights, I'll represent you, and I will fight for our district. Thank you very much.
Just go
our representatives to go down and stop bad legislation and pass good legislation. But that is not going to be enough, because that does not change hearts and it will not change culture. We are going to need representatives that first and foremost to go first and be willing to stand before God and ask for forgiveness, ask for favor over our state. Our country was founded on this idea that what would a society look like that people based on Christian Judeo principles, property rights, freedom, that our rights came from God, that it was not a king, it was self-governance. What kind of a culture would that create for people of faith, or any faith, or no faith? That it was not a state imposition. And we created America, the most free, most prosperous country in the history of the world. Texas has a part in that. We need to remember our history and identity, seek the Lord's favor for our state, and turn things around. Thank you.
As a Christian, I 100% use my Christian heritage and the biblical values on every vote I take. What I get tired of is hearing, go check his record. I want you all to go check my record. And it is. It's a constitutional conservative record, 100%. And any of you that don't believe that, come to my office, we'll sit down and talk about every vote that's taken. This is not like going to heaven where there's one way only. We work to move the ball in the right direction, just like we did on pro-life, just like we're doing on the border, just like we did to stop sexualizing kids in so many ways, where we banned profanity in schools and we banned gender trans surgeries or hormone. Just like we strengthened the election integrity by making it a felony to do the fraud. Just like we did when Lori and I went to TWU and signed the bill with Governor Abbott to not allow biological boys to participate in women's sports. So we have got a lot done, and again, look at the history. We've had the most 2 conservative sessions ever. Lynn Stuckey here, I appreciate your vote. God bless.
Would you have a round of applause for all the candidates? Okay, the next race is going to be the race for the 393rd Judicial District Court. We have both candidates here on that race.